So I wanted to remake a game from my childhood, but why remake it in 2D when you can remake it in 3D? Oh, that could be why. Well, why not try at least? I'll be giving myself a week to find out how to remake the original Plants vs Zombies in 3D. As I was making the game from scratch, the first thing I needed to do is make the modules. Now I never used Blender before, I mean I have but never successfully, so I spent some time learning and I ended up finding it really fun to use. So the first step should be simple enough. We just need an image of the plants, choosing the simplest one and adding another dimension to it, making it 3D. Then repeat for the other plants. I did have some problems designing the backsides of the plant, as in the game you always see them staring towards the camera, which isn't really realistic, so I had to improvise a bit on the backside. The zombies were a bit tricky to make due to their organic structure, so I tried and tried remaking them until I succeeded. I found a simple strategy of starting with the body and then working everything else out. Then we just put these all into the game and give them animations, bringing them to life. Now, the animations are super easy to create. As I was working with modules, I could just place them up and animate them. And just like that, the plants one by one got their animations. Another thing I wanted to make is a system that checks what line a plant is planted on, as I was struggling with this in the past. If you don't remember, I remade Plants vs Zombies for the Nokia Jam, and this system was super buggy and didn't work. The idea is to find out what line the plant is planted on. Now I feel as this is best explained using an example. If I place a pea shooter on the top line, the line checker will first check out all the lines and find out which line fits the plant's X position. After that, I will assign the proper line to the plant. The pea shooter will play his idle animation until he sees a zombie coming. After that, he'll check what line he's on and decide if he's going to shoot or continue idling. If he does decide to shoot, it'll switch to its shooting animation and fire a pea at the zombie every second or so. Okay, it took about 2 days to get all that finished up, so we have 5 days to actually make the game. Nice! The first thing I wanted to do is start off by making the area where the zombies will spawn, because currently we don't. We only have plants shooting at flying zombies. So the first thing I did was got the dimensions of the blocks in the Plants vs Zombies and set my scales to match it. The next thing we needed to do was get the textures of the tiles, which was pretty simple. Go to Google, find an image, make a material inside of Unity, then apply the material to the object. The next thing I wanted to do is something you don't necessarily see in the Plants vs Zombies games, but I wanted to add an effect when the zombies were close to the end, to make it more dark and spooky. The effect is different if you have or if you don't have a lawnmower on the end of the line. Now I note that in Plants vs Zombies there's a red flash, but I don't feel like that's endangering enough. And the last thing I had to add was the screen fading black when the zombies got to the end. Now with all that done, we have a Plants vs Zombies that feels a lot more creepy and dark. But I realized something even more terrifying than that. I'm not even close to being done with this game, and we're already on the end of the 3rd day. The next thing I wanted to module was the huge house on the left of the screen. I was avoiding this due to the large amount of details and everything, which was more tedious than difficult, and I had to improvise on some parts because the house is never fully seen in the game. Ever. The only other picture I could seem to find is when you fight Dr. Zomboss on the roof. By the way, what is this window doing on the top of the wall? What are you watching from up there? Now we can finally be done with the moduling and designing the main area. Cool! Now the difference between this view and the original isn't that huge, so I added this option to move the camera around just so you can see everything you want. With that done, I was thinking of working on the zombies. The level I chose to remake was 4 or 5 from the original game, in which only 2 types of zombies appear. The normal one and the traffic cone one. The normal zombie is pretty basic with his 10 health and a movement speed of 0.2 times time.delta time. He was pretty simple to code. The only and the hardest problem I had is assigning the line correctly, but I figured that out at the end. The traffic cone zombie is pretty interesting because he's at 25 health, and in all the footage I found he moves a bit faster than the normal zombie. He also eats plants faster, which is a bit weird, but that's it. Both of the enemies are done, and the problem we are having now is to spawn the zombies somehow. So let's create a new object, program in a script that will spawn them, assign their lines, their movement, their eating speed, and that's good. By the way, did you know that it takes a normal zombie a minute and a half? Let me repeat, a minute and a half to eat a walnut. Now the only thing left to do is make the zombies actually be able to eat plants and be killed. The first way I tried was using box gliders on the plants and the zombies, but that ended up failing due to a large amount of lag it produced. So I tried using vector 3 distance, which checked the distance between two objects, and if the distance was less than a certain amount, we would make the zombies eat plant or damage the zombie. So I put a white background, brought my stars of the night to the show and took pictures of them. Then I went into Fire Alpaca and removed the white background and put in the seatback background I designed for this. The suns in the top left corner were pretty fun to make. I also made the windscreen, which is a lot of fun, just cranking up the whiteness. The game over screen was pretty fun to make in 3D, and the telescreen was finally starting to come together as it was fun to design the 3D tombstone. The sound wasn't that difficult to get as I did just steal it from the main game, same with some of the sound effects due to my lack of skill on music. Applying the sound effects was pretty fun because I did it in a new way where every sound effect would be played through the main camera. So all I needed was a sound clip. Now, I did later find out that this would be tedious due to the amount of work with the background music colliding with the sound effects, and it wasn't as simple as I expected in the end, feeling as my normal method would have been way more efficient, but I digress. Now the only thing left to do is actually making a demo for the game. So I spent a few hours watching Plants vs Zombies content to figure out what zombies I needed to spawn, how often they needed to spawn, what planes they needed to spawn, and just configuring all of that out, which was, may I say so myself, extremely boring. Also, I had only 2 days to finish everything up. So I got to work, and here's a quick explanation of everything else I did. I made the sun drop from the sky every 7 seconds as they do in the original game, made them give you only 25 sun as they do in the original game, and not in the Plants vs Zombies 2 game. I made the sunflowers produce a sun every 14 seconds. I made the lawnmowers go off every time a zombie steps on it. I made the mine pop up and explode if a zombie comes into its radius. I made the walnut a bit less strong than the original game, giving him 60 health instead of his usual 90. And the last part I had to do was the final wave at the end, which I had a working system for, but it didn't work at the start. I had to check if all the zombies died, which was checked in the list of zombies that spawn. Then I launched the biggest and the baddest wave at you, and that's when the game was finally done. For the next 2 days, I just worked on polishing the game and fixing some bugs, but it was finally done in my weekly recreation of Plants vs Zombies. Now, of course, I wasn't going to make all the levels, that would be insane. But let's see how this video goes, and maybe, just maybe, I'll make them all. Also, I am sad, but this game cannot and won't be uploaded due to, well, it being a complete remake of the original Plants vs Zombies. If you want to go play the original version, go play the original version. But here's some footage of this game.